I kind of wanted to keep that going and then maybe just make it a radio show without any talking at all. Did you guys feel that?
Yeah, kind of slightly.
I could see Mirabai on the chat was like, yeah, this is good kitchen dancing here. Welcome to Voices, Visions and Extreme States in Music. This is obviously a highly well planned, thought out. We've been thinking about this for years. I didn't really hoodwink these guys into it like less than a week ago, and I wasn't really attempting to edit the videos down about 20 minutes ago because we are that planned at the Hearing Voices Network. For those of you that are joining us for the first time, the National Hearing Voices Network in England, we're just a small survivor-led charity. Our aim is really to create spaces where we can talk about voices and visions and other kinds of experiences openly without fear of judgment or stigma, and we can just be ourselves. We can think about our experiences in whatever way we want. You know, we've all got different beliefs about how come we feel the way we do, and that's welcome here. And that's one of the points of tonight, because I think in music, there's a lot of space to be unique and individual. And today we're going to be looking at lots of different genres, from like intense rock metal stuff. We've got heavy metal therapy person here, so of course, and we're going to look at some pop and some rap and lots of things in between. Before we get going, just a few basics. We're wanting this to be a kind of a discussion-y thing, so it's not just going to be Kate, Erica and myself talking at you. I mean, we're lovely voices, but I've got plenty of voices. You don't need extra. You really don't want my voice for the whole night, I'm sure. So what we're going to do is have two special guests. We've got Robin and Zoe popping in later, but also we'd like you guys to get involved. There's different ways you can do this. You can just listen and cook or dance around the kitchen or whatever it is that you do on a Friday evening. Or if you want, you can use the chat function. If you're not used to Zoom, don't worry. Hopefully on your screen, there should be like a little speech bubble, usually at the bottom, but depends whether you're using a phone or a computer. Click on that, the little chat pane appears and you'll see that people are chatting already. You can send a message to all participants and attendees, which means everybody here can see it. Or if there's a sort of a problem or something, you can always just message the panelists or me. It's harder for us to see it while we're talking, but I'll keep an eye on it as best I can. If you want to ask a specific question or raise a specific point, you can click on the Q&A, which is two speech bubbles, and put the question in. People from the attendees, anyone can answer and share their ideas, but we can also raise it in this space. Thirdly, if you're feeling really brave or I don't know, fancy appearing live on YouTube, that sounds scary when I say it out loud, doesn't it? You can come in to our room. Think of it like this is a few sofas here. We're kicking back, listening to music and sharing some thoughts. If you want to share some thoughts about the tunes with us and say how they affect you, as well as using the chat, you can also raise your hand. How do you do that when we can't see you? You should see a little icon. There'll either be a ... more thing, or there'll be a little hand sign. It depends what your setup is. Actually, just to test that people can do this, can you all try and find a raise your hand bit and see if it works? Oh, yes, we've got lots of hands raised. We've got 16 people. Brilliant. Then if you click it again, it takes your hand down again. So let's see if we can get rid of all of the hands. Fantastic. So if you want to join on audio, raise your hand, and then when there's a gap and a space, we'll bring you in. And you can either be a voice, or if you want to activate your video, you can join us as a little face on the screen, but it's completely up to you. Guidelines. All we ask really is that you try and keep the HVN ethos, which is just being kind really, and generous and listening to each other, speaking for yourself and not speaking for others. And again, we're not like policing the chat thing, but if you start spamming or something like that, then we'll probably have to remove you from the webinar. So, but aside from that, just use it as you feel. Whew, far too much. We've got a raised hand by Mirabai. Do you want to put your hand down for the moment? Otherwise, I'll invite you in straight away. Aha, that's the quickest way to get someone to put their hand down. Because I'm going to assume if someone puts their hand up that they do want to come and speak. Okay. Next thing, I'd like to invite the people I'm in conversation with just to say a bit about themselves, and we can talk to each other, guys, so we can ask questions, but just so that the guys who are watching roughly know who you are and what it is that made you say yes to coming here. Who wants to go first?
I can go if you want.
Yeah, do it.
Hello, everyone who's watching. My name is Erica Lee Martin. I'm a singer and songwriter. I'm originally from Canada, and I live in London, the UK now. I was interested in doing this because I don't hear voices, but I write quite a lot about my mental health and about specifically about extreme anxiety states and stuff like that. And I've always been really interested in Ray's experience and just as a composer of music, just how music can affect other people and how everyone experiences like the same piece of music very differently is really interesting to me, and influences me as a composer, I think. So that's, yeah.
Yay, cool.
Okay.
Good to have
so my name's Kate Quinn. I'm a psychologist and I'm up in Yorkshire. I also don't hear voices, but have worked for some time with people who do, and been involved in various hearing voices things over the years, including facilitating a hearing voices group and things. I'm here mainly because I run a project about heavy metal and extreme music and mental health and how they are related to each other. Some of which has involved hearing voices stuff, and also I guess from my own personal experience of finding extreme music quite helpful for my own mental health. Again, predominantly more around anxiety, but yeah, just really sort of keen to share some ideas really with everybody about how we can use music as a tool for helping us with our well-being.
You can tell that I've got a giant puppy here. I've got a Newfoundland who is only 1 year old, but has enormous lungs, and she heard a dog barking outside. So I'm just giving her a bit of fuss. It does mean if you hear lots of panting, this is not me. This is a giant puppy, like seriously big. Hopefully she'll calm down. I'm giving her a good stroke. So thanks, guys. It's kind of awesome to have you here. And can't believe actually almost everyone that registered has turned up, which is unheard of in these things. So yay, people. Why am I here? I hear voices. And it's interesting, you guys said I don't hear voices. It's like in a HVN spaces are so cool, because whether you're a psychiatrist, a psychologist, a mum, a dad, a giant bunny rabbit, you kind of almost feel you have to explain, I don't hear voices, I'm really sorry. It's like hearing voices is okay in a HVN space, so much so that those that don't hear it have to kind of explain it sort of shamefacedly, whereas we get to go, yeah, I hear voices. It's like a topsy-turvy thing, isn't it? But I hear voices and have for quite a long time. But even before I heard voices, come on, doggy, even before I heard voices, music was the thing that got me through my childhood and my stress and the trauma and the isolation and the beliefs, because I used to believe that there was something wrong inside of me, and music was a big part of expressing that without even having the real words or language for it. So it's kind of a big thing for me. And I'm a singer-songwriter now still. But what I love the most is maybe going to a rock club and just dancing, because music isn't all about the sitting and talking about it. Sometimes you just got to feel it. With that in mind, I wonder if we should go to a song. Kate, I was thinking about playing one of yours first, because I feel it's introducing people with a bit of heaviness. I know we should maybe leave them in. But do you have, out of the two, is there one you'd prefer, or shall I just choose one?
Just choose one, and yeah, easy either
Cool.
way. I think when we were doing the practice, we said that I guess they are both quite intense choices. So just as a bit of a, I don't know, trigger warning, heaviness warning, just in case that's the.
I love the heaviness warning.
Yeah.
What I'll say is, if you don't like the genre and you don't like the music, it's cool just to turn it down and step away for a minute. We'll still be here. We're going through the whole gamut. So some people will hate some of the music. Let's just be respectful of the different stuff. I can see Jamie's raised his hand, and that's awesome. We'll play the music first, and then hear a bit from Kate about what it means to her, and we can invite a couple of people in to chat with us if you like. Okay, let's find a song, shall we? I know it's in here somewhere. It's probably just as well seen as Doggy being somewhat, what's the word? She's having a conversation with the dogs outside. I'm just going to mute myself. So, Katie, what was it about that got you choosing it?
So I probably ought to say that I didn't choose the music that I've chosen today on my own. So I have quite a few people that sort of helped me out on heavy metal therapy, and one of them is a voice here, and we chose our songs together, and this was one of his. The ones that he thought was really good. So it's by Our Hollow, Our Home, and they're a metalcore band. And we chose it really because well, there were a few things. The depiction of voices, I guess, as perhaps kind of related to mood, was one thing that we identified. And the other thing is it talks a lot in that song. It's quite difficult to hear perhaps the lyrics, I suppose, if you're not used to that kind of music, but lyrically it sort of refers to this idea of sharing your head with somebody, perhaps having something that feels different or alien being sort of present and like an intrusion, which I thought might resonate for quite a lot of people. And certainly was something that the voiceover that I spoke to really strongly related to in their experiences. And there's probably something quite good about the intensity of it as well, that there's something that people can relate to, because sometimes voice hearing can be a really intense experience. So that was another reason why we thought it was a good choice. Oh, muted.
Mute. Yeah, I love this. I've never heard it before, but there was something kind of very powerful about it when it got to the chorus. I was kind of like, whew. It felt almost empowering. It's like he says something about reaching out to sort of sons and daughters so people don't have to face their demons on their own.
Yeah, that's a really good bit of it, I think.
Yeah, because you can have that sense of having something in your head that they don't like, that's something different, can be such an isolating experience. So using that, whew, I don't know.
Yeah, I think the idea about there being a shared experience is quite interesting as well, because I think certainly within the metal genre you get a lot of songs that refer to voices and extreme states and things like that. And I guess certainly for some of the people that I've worked with, also actually feeling that I'm not the only person that experiences this stuff, because there's somebody else, talking or singing about it, that's quite an important, or that seems to be quite an important thing as well.
I think so. And Erica, just because, you know, I don't know if you've heard this one before, but like, did it just hearing it, did it give you any thoughts, feelings, or was it just like whoosh, too fast?
I need to sit with music, I think, to really absorb, because like you said at the beginning, if you don't like a genre of music, just turn it down. My brain sort of went, I don't really like this.
Sorry, Erica.
But that's the thing is, like, I remember a friend of mine really enjoying this. I don't know if it was this band or one that sounded quite similar. And I thought, okay, this isn't really, you know, my thing, but explaining sort of why and what's happening in the song, and I think that the instrumentation of this and how sort of intense and almost, to me it sounds kind of almost violent, but I think like what you were saying about how sometimes hearing voices can be really intense, and I think it gets that message across really well, because there's a lot of the way some people compose, it's just they're not going to get to that place where they can really describe it in that way, and having the vocals, especially like that kind of vocal, you're not going to get the same impact if it's a nice, sweet, you know, beautiful, like sing-songy, like it's just not going to have the same impact. It's not going to be as like in your face. So
yeah, and I think you know, and you said that you know, it sounds quite violent. I think actually there's something okay about it being, you know, angry, or, you know, representing kind of anger. I think that's all right. And perhaps you know, we can use music, can't we, in different genres of music, different kinds of music, to represent different, you know, aspects of our emotion. And I suppose I sometimes think of metal as being quite good at being able to turn towards anger,
yes.
which sometimes is maybe not as prevalent in other kinds of music. So yeah, I think it's okay that it's violent in a way, in a sort of symbolic way.
Yeah, I completely agree that all emotions are valid, and therefore all, you know, all genres of music are valid, because like they touch on all the different things that people might be feeling at different times, right? So yeah.
It's really funny as well how we hear it differently, and it'd be interesting to hear from some of the guys in the audience in case they have any feelings about that song or some of the others we're going to play. But I've always found it interesting that I find it the opposite of violent when I hear it. I find it like really calming. When I heard that, it was almost like a warm blanket around me, and I just was like, oh, that just feels right. And I don't know whether that's to do with my experiences of trauma as a child. I used to go sleep to Fear Factory, and if you don't know Fear Factory, guys, that's a heavy double bass pedaling, and most people would not find it calming, but it was the thing that lulled me to sleep when I was in my worst kind of times. But yeah, it's strange.
I mean, it's interesting. I think if you like that sort of music, a lot of people will say to me they find it quite calming, in almost like a slightly paradoxical way. And I think maybe there's something about being able to match the intensity of your own feelings with the intensity of the music. There's maybe something about that as well. I don't know, but yeah. So Fear Factory now features on our sleep playlist because because of you, right? So lots of people are out there going to sleep to Fear Factory.
Sorry, I'm sorry for all of their neighbours. I wonder if we should play another one, because that one, for me, there was a bit of a battle in it. There was a sense of resistance as well, and maybe going to a different genre with a bit of a battle too might kind of work, just to get a few things in, and then we'll open it up, get a few people to come and play with us. So I'm actually going to steal the floor and play one of the ones that I've put in, which is a song by 21 Pilots, who I've kind of got a bit of a crush on, in a musician kind of way. It's kind of embarrassing, really. They're just so damn talented, and they don't respect any genre boundaries. They just do everything from kind of folk to rock to kind of pop to anything, and I kind of love that. So here is a song called Migraine, just a little clip of it, and see what we think of that. That was a little more jaunty. Why did I choose that one? Makes me smile. It's kind of funny because it's jerky and like you move around to it. It feels quite joyful, but what it's talking about is it feels like he's reaching out and going, you know, am I the only one who has this? And I like the visceral bit, you know, the body bit where it's like it's behind my throat and under here. It's got a feeling to it and it looks kind of uncomfortable. And some of the voices that I hear have like physical feelings with them. And it's, yeah, and also he just, whether he hears voices or not, I don't actually mind. I kind of buy that he has stuff. There's stuff he's singing about that's real because it feels real to me. But it, yeah, it still feels, still gets me grooving. How about either of you? Have you got any thoughts on it?
I mean, there's something really like playful about it, I think. So, you said it was sort of like a bit jerky almost, but when I was watching, I thought there is something quite playful and almost a little bit humorous about it. And I think that's something that can be really therapeutic, actually, and perhaps something that is underestimated sometimes when we think about, real emotional distress. Because I suppose the thought is, we must be very serious about a very serious thing, and it is a serious thing, but there is a role for playfulness and creativity, I think, and that really came across for me in that little clip.
Yeah, that playfulness was very much there without being disrespectful, which is quite hard to nail, I think.
Yeah, I think, and also if the person's talking from their own experience, I think sometimes that's probably easier to sort of do that, maybe.
Yeah, unless you're really good at songwriting.
Yeah.
Erica, any thoughts from you? Or still?
I quite like it. I think for some reason it's coming to me like the idea of like normalizing these kinds of experiences, whatever they might be for this songwriter, we don't know, but because I think there's something about writing something that is jaunty and fun in some way that makes me feel like, oh, this is normal. People feel this way and it's fine. Which I don't know, I quite like. I like having that juxtaposition of I'm going through this thing, that line of sometimes you've got to kill your mind, and then also having this sort of like, I quite enjoy having that because you can exist in those two states, and it's nice to be able to marry them, I think. So I think they've done it really well. It's nice. I like it.
Oh, I think Rachel's muted herself.
I kind of like that you picked up on the you have to kill your mind sometimes, because in the hearing voices movement, one of the ways we sometimes look at voices is as being metaphorical. So the voices sometimes tell me to kill myself or do pretty terrible things. And I choose to take them symbolically, not literally. And so sometimes the kill could be change, or it could be quiet or stop. There's different ways. So to kill my mind, I might actually just watch sugar TV and listen to pop music sometimes. And it numbs my mind enough. I won't listen to free jazz. That just makes my mind so yeah. It's an interesting one that even that has some different meanings for me. I'm thinking we have a few questions. One of them is about like, can we get the song titles, stuff like that? Yes, I will be releasing a list of all of the stuff, and I'm going to email all of the participants with it. So if you've registered with your own email, you'll definitely get it. Otherwise, it will be on the HVN website. And we'll also be releasing the video in about a week's time, when anyone who's taken part has given me, I've checked with them that they're happy for it to go out. And if they're not, I'll just edit the bit that they've taken part in, because I really respect kind of anonymity. I wonder, we're going to invite Robin in shortly, but we've got Jamie who's got your hand up at the moment. If you really want your hand up, keep it up. If you accidentally have it up, you can take it down, because if you've got it up, I'm guessing you want to come in and make a comment. And if anyone else wants to join us at this point and just talk about anything that we've been talking about or listening to, put your hand up. Technical stuff, allowing people into the room is great, but it's also a bit scary in case I cut someone off by mistake. So guys, do you think it's all right if we get Robin in to listen to some of his songs?
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah. Robin, where are you? Can you raise your hand, Robin, so I can find you? Aha. Let's promote you to panelist. Woohoo. Hopefully you'll be coming in very shortly. Fantastic. Just need to unmute yourself, Robin. And do you want to say a little bit about how come you're taking part?
Because I have a lot of experience with voices since 2001 now, and in the beginning it was really a struggle. Later on I learned how to live with it and find meaning in it. And about the last 7 to 10 years, it's also become my work or calling, or how you call it, to help people try and support people who hear voices, their family and friends, mental health care workers, at the Hearing Voices Support Center in Nijmegen in the Netherlands. And I love music for a long time, and I love making music and dancing to music. With this coronavirus, I missed the mosh pits, you know, with 1.5 meter in between. It's difficult to have a good mosh pit. But and I'm really interested in the mix, so I'm gathering songs about voices and musicians who talked about their experiences and think about how it can aid recovery and emancipation.
Awesome. You were one of the first people I thought about, actually, but I'm really glad that you're joining us, because I remember at the Hearing Voices Congress, I think you and my friend John, or Joe as he's sometimes known, on stage.
It's cool.
Yeah, it was really cool. So which of your songs do you fancy playing at the moment?
I like the song by Suicidal Tendencies. It's a bit heavy. I hope people will like it. I don't know which one you have selected, because I emailed you another one.
I think it's the first one that you suggested.
That's okay.
So it's the one called Voices, or Hearing Voices, if I can.
Yeah, this band is very inspiring to me since I was a kid. I heard you talking about listening to Fear Factory. Well, I was listening to this band when I was 12 years old. I went to bed with, woke up with it. And they were singing about being psycho. That's something this singer is singing a lot about. It's called Psycho Michael. And he sings about hearing voices, about psycho vision, about being institutionalized and things like that, but also uplifting, empowering lyrics about "You Can't Bring Me Down," for instance, is an anthem that really empowered me through difficult times. So yeah, this song is explicitly about hearing voices, and especially for the first time that you start hearing voices, maybe the person before me can relate a little bit to it.
Okay, let's play it and see what happens. tempted to keep going with that one, but we've got many more songs. Yeah. I remember when I first heard that, because I've not heard Suicidal Tendencies for a long time, but I was reading the lyrics, and I don't know if people can actually make sense of them if they're hearing it for the first time, because I think heavier music, like you say, it takes a bit of getting used to. Some of the lyrics that I particularly loved, it's this idea that he knew that something wasn't right. He was silent, and the heart made a jump, and the sound that made him jump, and he tried to look around for the sound, and he couldn't see it. And it was there the next day as well. He's trying to make sense of it. And this is like word for word how I tell my first voice hearing story when I was at uni, that I just didn't know what was going on. I was looking in the cupboards. Yeah, it's the kind of I hear voices is like a happy little thing, but the verse really sounds accurate. I don't know. What about you, Robin?
My first experience was a little bit different, but I grew up on this song, and it was talking about hearing voices. I had no idea what it was about, and now I can relate a lot more to it. So yeah, but it's an accurate description for many people. Also, people who come to the Hearing Voices Support Center and that tell about their first experience. It's similar, you know. You're alone at home, and you hear something, and you're gonna check where's it coming from, yeah, and there's nobody there, you know. So that's the first kind of reality check, and also insight that, hey, maybe I'm having an extraordinary experience here. I'm hearing something that other people maybe not hearing. Yeah,
that makes sense. Any thoughts from you guys, Erica or Kate?
I think I talk about this a lot on the website, but it's quite interesting that some music, some genres particularly, I guess, talk about things that maybe are taboo in society to talk about. So, you know, the idea of being a psycho, for example, and using that language. I mean, even the name Suicidal Tendencies, I guess, is perhaps controversial in some way, and yet there's something about being able to engage with that and relate to that in some ways. So yeah, it's just a comment really, rather than anything else to say. I think it's interesting.
It's I just what you said about using this using certain language that that they might have come across that, you know, was not useful, stuff that was useful, but sort of owning those labels and addressing it, and then telling this backstory behind it, I think is really interesting. And it's I can hear how the rhythm in particular, and then the sort of underlining like bass line and everything would really be helping sort of to like a progression, like a moving forward. I think that's what I hear when I hear that song.
Nice. Yeah, for me it's also like psycho. For me is like a positive word, you know. It's like something, a proud name that you can use for it. Like in the Netherlands we have a word called geuzennaam. It's a bad word that people who have been called that way in a negative way start using it in a positive way to identify themselves. Yeah, I like that part. It's emancipatory, I think, to find your own words and your own ways. Yeah, I like that.
It's like reclamation in some way.
Yeah, for instance, in is like a bad word to call people, you know, but in some music, for instance, or in some cultures, subcultures, it's become a word to use for each other, like, yeah, like a proud NWA, you know. So they use it like, hey, we are that, we have been like put down by society and by others, but we got some worth, we got some power and ideas, and we resist that So something like that. For me, suicidal tendencies and other music is like a tribe, and almost feels the same like the activistic part of Hearing Voices network. It's a critical thinking and resisting unjust things and standing up for yourself. That's for me really uplifting and empowering.
That's really interesting, Robin, because obviously I'm part of the Hearing Voices network. And when you were saying about the reclamation of words, I know, say the word in some circumstances said by someone who's Black could be seen as positive. If I was to say it, it's straight away not okay. But even within circles, some people will say it's okay to say that if you're Black, and some will say actually no, it's playing into the oppression. And I think it's the same with mad language. I'm quite proud to say the word mad because I mean it as a positive, as an opening, I can be a bit different, and it's cool, sense of pride. But there will be other people who have these experiences who, for that reclamation of the language, is actually offensive. Words like psycho, for example, they're very contentious even within the Hearing Voices world. And that's kind of cool, I guess, because it's not about us forcing everyone to say the same words. I think in music, it's finding your own symbolism. Is it a word that someone's used? Is it the feeling? Is it the music, the lyrics? Is it, I don't know, whatever. It allows you a bit more freedom.
And there's the idea that things are provocative, I think, like music, particularly extreme music, has always been provocative, hasn't it? And it you know, perhaps challenges some of our ways of looking at things. And there's a role for that as well, isn't there, in, you know, music and lots of other things, drama, etc.
And I'm kind of thinking, I mean, someone's sort of gone, is there something that actually other stuff that cheers us up that's around metal? And because we're talking about emancipation, I was remembering the World Hearing Voices Congress in Australia. For those of you that don't know, we gather every year in a different country. People who hear voices, family members, allies, friends, workers. And sometimes there's a few hundred, sometimes there's 500, but it's really cool. And I remember someone playing Eminem Monsters, and us all sort of basically standing up and being like, I cried because it was this feeling of solidarity. So is it all right if I play a bit of that?
Yeah.
Okay, because I feel like a DJ. It's a strange old world, isn't it? Let me get that lined up. I should really have got it lined up before choosing to play it. And let's try that one. Share the screen.
The Bruce Lee of loosely abused ink. Use it as a tool when I blew steam. Woo! Hit the lottery, ooh wee. But with what I gave up to get, it was bittersweet. It was like winning a used me. Ironic, cause I think I'm getting so huge I need a shrink. I'm beginning to lose sleep. One sheep, two sheep, going cuckoo and kooky is cool key. But I'm actually weirder than you think. Cause I'm
friends with the monster that's under my bed. Get along with the voices inside of my head. You're trying to save me, stop holding your breath. And you think I'm crazy, yeah, you think I'm crazy. Well, that's not Well, that's not
No, I ain't much of a poet, but I know somebody once told me to seize the moment and don't squander it. Cause you never know when it all could be over.
As tempting it is to keep going on with that, for me, that's like an anthem song. It's, I don't know if you heard the lyrics, but it's, do you remember what they are, Robin? I keep forgetting.
Well, he sings about a lot of things, about learning to live with voices by changing the relationship, about becoming friends with the voices. And that's, yeah, for me also, that has been really a turning point after somebody did voice dialogue with me, when somebody else talks with your voices and you tell them what the voices say. and try to get to understand each other. This, yeah, since then I've been kind of friends and cooperating with the voices, and they've become way more friendly for me. So this, yeah, and in the Hearing Voices movement, that's one of the things that we talk about. And another thing is that people call them crazy, call him crazy, but he doesn't care, you know, he knows what he's doing. In the clip, you also see like there's a lot of danger, and finally the thing that everybody is afraid of, or Eminem is afraid of, was himself. So maybe that's kind of symbolic of, and maybe for some people, you know, the voices represent a part of themselves that is angry or hurt, or and comes out as a voice. I don't know. People have the freedom to interpret themselves, but there's a lot of stuff in that song and in that video. I think it's really reaching out to like millions of voice hearers, like, hey, you can hear voices. It can be difficult, but you can learn how to live with it. You're not crazy. It's a powerful message. I like it.
Yeah, it's that idea that monsters we usually fight against. And as someone that thought they were a monster when they were a child, I learned to hate monsters. And now, yeah, why is someone a monster? Why is something angry? And it promotes this sense of trying to understand and work with. And for some people, their voices are now their strength. Isn't quite the same for me. I kind of wish it was. But yeah, I like the idea that it can turn around, but it's ambivalent because the monster at the end himself is still under guard, armed guard. It's like, I'm getting along with you, but I don't quite trust you yet. And that sounds about right. Otherwise, it's a bit too happy fairiness. Yeah. Erica, Kate, any little bits?
I mean, I remember when that song came out, thinking, you know, having been a voice dialogue practitioner at that point for some time, and thinking it was unusual but really great actually to see things framed in that way, because a lot of the time, well, first of all, I'm not sure that a lot of mainstream pop music type stuff would necessarily cover those topics anyway. But even if it did, there is often, we use a lot of language around mental health, don't we, about battles and almost like sometimes an illness type model. You know, we're fighting against depression, or you're fighting against whatever. And I think, yeah, it just gives it a different spin, and perhaps much more in line with some of the approaches that maybe the Hearing Voices movement or other, you know, psychological approaches might take.
I quite enjoy the way that a lot of rap is the stream of consciousness factor of it. I think lends itself really well to talking about this kind of thing, because it's sort of like, you know, I mean, like writing in a diary, just writing, like not necessarily like, today I've done this, but just whatever thought comes in your head, just like writing it down. Obviously, it's more structured than that, but it's that kind of purging. I think that's what I get, and that's what I've always gotten, especially from Eminem, is this idea of like purging your thoughts. This is what I'm feeling. This is what I'm feeling. This is what I'm thinking, and to tack on like a nice, beautiful like melody for the chorus really just is uplifting. I think it makes you like. It is kind of cathartic. I think those two things together, the sort of like, here's all my stuff. Here it is. This is what I'm feeling. This is what I'm thinking. And then, you know, like I think it's really effective. It affects me, I think. So.
For me, it's also, I wonder if Eminem actually hears voices, or Rihanna, you know. For some of the music we've been playing, I don't know for sure. It seems like very obvious, but for me, there has to be like for instance, an interview or autobiography where people tell about their experiences, because sometimes people just take the perspective of somebody who hears voices and write from that perspective rather than actually hearing the voices. And Donnie Hathaway, that we started with, I know he heard voices, and what I like in the Netherlands now, there's a young female rapper as a teen, and she openly sings about it, but also talks about it, and also her experiences in psychiatry, and trying to help people with it. So I think it would be nice if a lot more artists openly talk about it, also besides their songs, you know.
That's actually brings me to the next song, and I think what might do, if it's okay with you, Robin, is get you back into the participants, because I'd like us to move away from just the voices, because there's going to be loads more, and there's like a crossover track. So I'm going to say bye-bye. We might, if you're up for it, come back in later.
Bye.
Got 35 minutes left. Wow. Time does go fast, doesn't it? But we shall see you soon. Bye. So where are we going now? And the funny thing is, Erica and Kate do not know where we're going. They have not approved this playlist at all. But I thought I'd move us to a genre of music where mental health is particularly stigmatized. Even though it's like a really expressive and very real kind of music, people that speak out often get really attacked. It's a bit like football. Back old in the days, if you spoke as a footballer saying, "I hear voices," you probably get trash talk. In this genre, very much so. So I'm going to play someone, actually I'm going to just introduce it by playing it, just to be, I don't know, brave. Well, now I can't find it. Okay, I'll keep rambling while I'm doing it. This is someone called Kid Cudi, and it's called Do It Alone. When he first came out as having sort of mental health issues, he had a pretty hard time of it, actually. People were pretty mean. I think there was a track release that was saying bad stuff about him. But for me, it's not just, he talks about voices a little bit, but it goes wider than this, just this kind of world of having stuff in your head, because I want to move into this extreme experiences part as well, so we don't get stuck with the voices. That was good time wasting, wasn't it? Here we go.
Man. Dream on. Dream on. These voices, they tell me go. Why should I ever go? Man, I'm so comfortable here. Why should I head to a place where people live in fear? Standoffish to really hear something they can really feel, but see, I'll never get why the earth is a puzzle that I'll never fit. I'm not of the world, so why should I leave my sanctuary? Man, the whole thought of that is scary. How do I know that the kind will truly hear me out? Where they understand I'm flying from a different route. Pose as a human being. Mother Moon tells me that people need my help. I guess these are the cards she threw out and dealt. She said I gotta do it alone. She said I gotta do it alone.
Yeah. Why do I like that one? I have no idea. Like Robin said, I don't know if he has voices or not. He's never, as I know, spoken about it. He's definitely got stuff. But the line in it I love is why, but I'll never get why the earth is a puzzle that I'll never fit. I'm not of their world, so why should I leave my sanctuary? And man, the whole thought of that is scary. How do I know that the kind will truly hear me out? And it's that sense for me of being like, part of my experience is what they call dissociation or withdrawing or separating and splitting off, and also feeling really low and hiding inside my bed sits when I lived in one. and not trusting the world to accept me, partly because I didn't accept myself. Yeah, I thought this might be a good time to play some tunes about that sense of dislocation and or acceptance. And I was thinking, Erica, gonna do a massive musical shift because I'd like us to play like about 3 tunes all at once and then maybe have a talk about them. So we get a bit more music in and we've got a bit more grist to the mill. Would it be okay if we played Alanis?
Yeah, go for it.
Yeah, so I'll play that. If you like, say a little bit about why you chose it, just because it helps me cue it up without the world ending.
Yeah, I picked this song because it's I'm vamping really well here. To me, it's the instrumentation is very calming, and it comes at a point in the album where you've been hearing a lot of cacophonous music, and this is sort of a still moment, and it's very contemplative. And the subject matter is asks a lot of questions of yourself, and it's a lot about insecurities and stuff. But because it's quite meditative sounding, it's quite cool.
Awesome, you blathered perfectly.
That I would be good, even if I did nothing. That I would be good, even if I got the thumbs down. That I would be good if I got and stayed sick. That I would be good, even if I gained 10 pounds. That I would be fine, even if I went bankrupt. That I would be good.
Gotta love a bit of Alanis there. Trying to think, do I want another one? But I think we'll stick with those 2 for the moment because there feels like a theme in it for me. And the theme for me is what it is to not fit with what people want you to be or what you think people want you to be.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's a universal thing, whether you're a voice hearer, a vision seer, or whatever. I think many of us that come to music have a sense of dislocation, of not fitting. And I know the Alanis one, to me, that was huge because I'm not Alanis Morissette in any way. She taught me to sing, though, I believe. Her and Eddie Vedder were my singing teachers when I was a young'un. But it was like, just spoke that sense of inner badness that I carry around with me. And to hear someone else speak of it just made me feel less alone. Didn't make me feel sad. It wasn't a sad song. It was just a beautiful connection. I don't know what you guys think of any of the last couple of songs. And again, if there's anyone in the audience that wants to come in and share some thoughts, you're very welcome.
I think they're both quite contemplative, both in terms of the lyrics and the how the music sounds, and that's sort of, I think that's really important because it's like having this sort of more meditative conversation with yourself, and it's almost being, in terms of the Alanis one, it's almost kind of being like an attempt at being rational and saying, okay, do I need to feel this way? Is it all right? And posing that question and sort of trying to break down how you're feeling and and deciding whether this is useful or not, kind of. I think that's what it's trying to get to, just having a sort of constructive conversation. That's what it sort of sounds like to me.
I mean, I was going to say that the theme that I picked up out from both of those, and I had not heard the Kid Cudi one before, was around kind of vulnerability, really, in terms of there's something quite honest about both of those songs. I thought, lyrically and the energy of them, both sort of conveying what I thought seemed to be maybe about vulnerability, and that what you were saying before, Ray, about in some genres that's probably quite difficult. I think actually that that's a pretty tough ask, isn't it, in some kinds of music. So there's a bravery in that as well, I think.
Especially bravery of doing it in a vulnerable way. So like Eminem, just going back to his stuff, he seems to share a lot. It's kind of like me, keeps talking, very little filter, but it doesn't seem so risky. And I don't know whether it's the way that he shares it. Seems to be very much like, well, here it is, la, and there's some sense of armor sometimes, not in all of his stuff, but it feels like he's there. Whereas, I don't know, I'm thinking of Alanis and just going, hey, I really don't feel sure about myself on the inside in front of lots of people, and doing it in a vulnerable way, that takes some serious guts. It's almost like the metal or the rock or the kind of attitude allows you to say all those things, but it doesn't have always the same vulnerability. I don't know. I've never seen that before.
Yeah, something naturally brave, I think, about rapping or about playing metal. It's so in your face and unapologetic. And yeah, I find that Alanis and the Kid Cudi one as well sounds almost like an apology as it starts, sort of like, like, I'm sorry, I'm here, take up your space.
Cool, there's a variety of it, because I also know some of my favorite stuff. I used to really like screamo, which is like emo with screaming and stuff, and it's loud but it's also vulnerable. And some of my best mates who are really angry, there's a real vulnerability in even showing your anger. So it's like the vulnerability can come in different ways.
Yeah.
But there's something about playing it to a bunch of metal people that I expect them to be with me, because there seems to be that community and solidarity in rock. For Alanis, I think it was a lot of women, maybe guys, I don't know, that felt insecure, that bonded with that. I'm guessing for Kid Cudi, it's amazing that he's done that, but he didn't do it with the same expectation of acceptance, maybe? I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, the metal scene tends to be relatively accepting in terms of variety of experiences, different opinions and things like that. There are exceptions to that, and I won't say that it's perfect. But yeah, I think you're right that it might be easier to say some things in certain contexts than it is in others. Definitely.
I'm wondering, as always, whether we should get our next guest in, because otherwise we'll just have chatty chat and no music. And then, I don't know, people will ask for their money back. They didn't even pay, so we'll be in negative credit. It's all bad. So Zoe, if you're listening to this, I'm going to invite you in. So if you were in the middle of something really exciting, put the cat down, and we'll introduce Zoe. If I can find you, I'll add you as a panelist. Hopefully you'll be there. Yay! Welcome, Zoe. Hi. Do you want to say just a little bit about why I've dragged you in here and what your relationship is to this?
Yeah, I'm Zoe. I am a therapist, and before that I was a DJ. I spent a lot of years trying to play quite extreme music to people, and as a DJ really explore that bond of like trying to take people into more extreme states and back out of them, in order to keep them on the dance floor for the longest time. But you really have to pace that. It's quite a kind of psychological adventure.
Like that psychological adventuring. Yeah, travel a lot of territory, go to a lot of places. So you were up for playing a couple of songs. Do you have a preference over which one we do at this point?
Which one? Killing Joke?
Mhm. Cool. I will just find it. Could you
Yep.
say a bit about why you chose it and what the song's called? Because I keep forgetting those things.
Yeah, sure. The song is by a band called Killing Joke, and it's called The Pandies Are Coming. It's one of the older songs. I chose it because I felt like it tied in with the idea of expressing extreme emotions in a really positive and focused way. But I feel like for me, I really felt it's that kind of music where you feel it, especially live. You don't just hear it. It's like a actual experience.
Mhm. Yeah, and that's the kind of thing, because we can sometimes focus just on the words, but I was chatting with Erica earlier, and it's actually the feels and the whole package that can be so powerful. Let's have a little go at playing it. I may not have chosen the best clip, but let's see.
In a time that wasn't a time, there was a place that wasn't a place, there was a race that wasn't a race. But I lived in a city no one knew. Thousands of people in decision, chained in by sorrow. Everyone started to wonder how it had begun. Waiting for leaders to lead them to pens. Queues move for miles and millions to come. Fall off because righteous a few. Friend kept complaining and joined the queue.
Just a little bit of that there. Although I've listened to Killing Joke, I didn't know that one at all. And I was like, listen, why did you choose that? I don't know. For me, this, again, that sort of jerkiness was quite a big feel. But this sense of in a time when no one knew, in a place, it's just, it sounds tightly frantic to me. I don't know if that makes sense. I don't know what anyone else thinks. It could be you, Zoe, it could be Erica or Kate. Like, what kind of feelings came up when you heard it?
It's quite kind of discordant almost, wasn't it? Some of it, which I quite liked. That I'm really into the band Nine Inch Nails, and they're really good at that that sort of stuff as well. It really reminded me of some of that. And we've talked a bit before about the idea of music making you feel a little bit uncomfortable, something a little bit uncomfortable about it, but not in a bad way. It's, you know, you feel something, don't you? And I think that's really good about it.
Yeah, that reminds me of again, one of my mates who's much more into post-punk and stuff that just feels a bit like your fingers on a blackboard. He loves listening to that, and it makes my soul stand on end. But I think that's the point for him. It's like Killing Joke only does that a little bit for me, but some stuff, it's actually physically uncomfortable for me to listen to.
That the idea of it being discordant, and that I mean, you know, back when music was first, you know, being cataloged and stuff, like having stuff that was discordant was bad and was, you know, like the devil's music and stuff. Like, and I'm talking about hundreds of years ago. So I think now we still feel that that it is not that it's bad, but I think it's delicious, but it's unsettling, and it really does get your point across. You know, it's sort of like, I want you to feel just a little bit on edge. Like, is this how, like, you know, try to make the listener feel a bit of how you're feeling when you're composing it, I think. And doing it through harmony or the lack of harmony is is an excellent way to immediately get that point across to the listener. This is where we are. It might be uncomfortable, but you know.
I love that. This is where we are. It might be uncomfortable. Just that links really well, I think, Zoe, to what you were saying about the adventuring with people. Florine, from the audience, people that are out there, and we can tell because you're typing, keep typing, guys, otherwise it will feel like we're just, actually it's quite cozy. My cat's even settled on me now. But she was asking if you could say a bit more about what you mean by extreme states and the idea of transitioning in and out of the extreme states, because it's almost like for me the music does that, because it's hard to be with sometimes, and then sometimes the music can kind of get easier. But yeah, do you have any thoughts that you want to share on that, Zoe?
I think, I mean, certainly the other band I was going to play was Hawkwind, but it's a similar, like the idea of using trance rhythms has been used by lots of cultures through time to try and invoke feelings in people, and sort of morphed into that industrial stroke techno scene, these kind of bands, including Killing Joke that I just played. And I think they also very much represent a kind of outsider view of dissociation, and a lot of that is linked to social coordinates. And so the extreme state is perhaps feeling completely disconnected, because, for example, that song has different meanings. For me, it was more to do with being disconnected from my environment and disconnected from society in many ways by things which weren't within my control when I first heard it. The songwriter writes that it's about his experiences of his family being disconnected and nearly annihilated by the British in India historically. But the theme, I think, is, that claustrophobia and going in and out of those extreme states. Yeah, I think by listening to an album, which people don't do so much anymore, in many ways, a lot of old school albums, they're designed to take you in and out of quite extreme states in responding to the music and the lyrics.
I love that, because I don't listen to albums in the same way that I used to, but are really tightly constructed often to go in and out. Like, people work out how they want you to listen to the music, and now we just download the latest track. Yeah, which is kind of challenging, because I often go for the really intense ones, but then I don't get the kind of the remission, the little bit of lightness.
I really like the idea that you can, when you talked about as a DJ, you might almost induce an extreme state, or people might actually sort of try and do that with music. Create something different, create an extreme state. Because I guess a lot of the time, I suppose I maybe work with people who are trying to get rid of certain types of experiences, or neutralize them in some way. And yet, in fact, culturally, all of us probably use music in that way, don't we, to try and engage with something or create something. And I suppose that's probably why a lot of people do a lot of things, really. But yeah, absolutely. It just really struck me when you said it. Of course, if you go and see a DJ, or go and see a band or whatever, you're inducing an extreme state of a sort, aren't you? Probably.
Yeah, and I think that, as you said earlier, turning to face emotions which are unpalatable or even taboo, and seeing them mirrored in the other and also in oneself, it's a bit like therapy, where somebody paraphrases back what someone's saying. It's like a mirror of things for both parties. Or it could be seen like that.
This is, I'm wanting to play another song, just because again, I have the power, but partly because it feels relevant to me, at least. You can tell me whether it feels relevant to you. 9 Inch Nails was mentioned. I love 9 Inch Nails. I'm not going to play one of the heavy tracks. There's lots. Like, I was tempted to play Hurt, because it was the soundtrack to my university years, when I was self-harming and struggling. Yeah, soundtrack to a lot of things. But I'm going to play, I think, a song off of one of the more recent. Well, it's not recent now. God, I'm so old. It's terrible, isn't it? Through With Teeth. I think it's With Teeth. Right Where It Belongs.
Teeth is it's a great album, and that is a great song.
Phew, I haven't lost my cred, which is really,
I'm
really.
not sure I count as having cred, but I think it's good.
Heavy metal therapy, you are like steeped in cred. I don't know what I am anymore. A bad DJ. This is actually one of my husband's favorite songs, and really speaks to that sense of not knowing if you're real, if the world's real, and if you can face what's coming, at least to me. So here it goes. Little bit of peace there. Any quick thoughts? I say quick thoughts because I'm thinking of time, but also thoughts.
I love that song. And it's quite cool what he's doing. I'm just gonna be a music nerd for a second. How, you know, he's saying, you know, are you sure you know which side of the glass you're on? And he's playing around with, he's dipping in and out of the major and minor, which is making you feel like, which side am I on? Which is, and again, that sort of unsettling feeling and that sort of questioning. I think it makes you already, like, even the first line of the song, you're questioning what's going on, which is just really effective, and it stimulates in a very fun way.
It really reminds me of the times when I'm entering what often gets called psychosis. I don't know what word I want to use for it, but periods where I have intense beliefs. There's this moment where I'm kind of not sure which reality is real, and I'm stuck between the two. In one, I'm in a hospital and I'm a girl on medication with a diagnosis, and the other, I'm part of a conspiracy, and it's like, actually, that's the uncomfortable bit. If I'm one side or the other, it's fine. It's when I'm starting to question which one is real. Thinking about confronting my trauma in therapy, and every so often I go through the belief that I'm an android because actually facing my reality is too much. So again, android is better than reality sometimes. And then when I'm in the middle bit between those two states, I still have that same level of, can I face it or not? Which is real? Which side am I on? We have 7 minutes. Woohoo. With those 7 minutes, I'm thinking, where do we go? Because I'd really like, I'm picking up, because there's a few things we've had. There's been some talk about good versus cheesy versus kind of proper good, and good can be loud and angry and make you feel good, and what makes you feel good. We've had a request for Alive by Pearl Jam, which I may or may not be able to make happen. I'm hoping we can play out with that if I can make it happen. We've got some people like Laurie who really identifies with some of the stuff that I'm saying. There's some appreciation of the shamanic stuff, and also this sense of actually music can be so affecting that it can send you high or low, and actually some people have to be really careful. It's like drugs. Like I have playlists for different states, because if I play certain music in certain states, it sends me up or down or sideways. So where do we go with all of this? I was thinking about playing some stuff that talks about these things, but in a slightly more light-hearted way, to almost like coast us out. So we'll maybe start with some metal and then coast out through a couple of other genres. Does that sound cool with you guys? Might put you back in the audience if it's okay, Zoe.
Sure.
Thank you so much for being with us. You're a star. Haha, it's just us again, not us and lots of people watching us wishing that I knew how to not speak. Chat amongst yourselves about what you've heard thus far while I find the right tune to play. No pressure.
Well,
Go ahead, Kate.
no, I was just going to say it's sort of flown a little bit, and you know, I could probably devote an entire conference to Nine Inch Nails, for example. But yeah, it just makes me think how much there is really, and like, you know, I could probably do this for for ages. But yeah, I hope people have been able to get sort of something out of it, or you know, answer questions and things like that.
I'm always amazed at how music affects people differently. That just, you know, everyone, like, you know, Ray was always saying, everyone's got a different story, and so obviously how they interpret music is going to be different, and it's wonderful. It's and it's something that is so great about music, but so great about art in general, is that it can be interpreted in lots of different ways.
Thank you for chatting. You guys are like stars, really. You know what you're doing. This is one that Heavy Metal Therapy donated or suggested. I'm just going to play it, and you can say anything about it afterwards. Could you say the name? Do you recognise the track?
Yeah, this is Voices by Motionless in White.
Perfect.
Voices in my head again, trapped in a war inside my own skin. They're pulling me under. But still feel the pain. If I showed you my soul, would you cover your eyes? If I told you the truth, would you dare me to lie? I keep it all inside because I know the man is everything but kind. Voices in my head again.
I wanted to get to that bit, which I keep it all inside. Why did you choose that one? Just
well, a few reasons. I think one of the things that we really wanted to draw on is this. So he talks about, I keep it all inside because the man is everything but kind. And I think the thing that is reflected a lot in that song is the idea that it's maybe not okay to tell other people, or that people will judge, you know, these kinds of experiences. And almost, you know, you've got to keep it to yourself. And I know, so I work predominantly in early intervention services. And a lot of people will say that they were very anxious about letting somebody know that this was the experience that was happening, and that they feared that they would be harshly judged, really. So I thought that song kind of reflected some of that.
yeah, very much so. It's yeah, I still get, there's something jubilant about it though, which is kind of weird. So there's that kind of stuff around stigma and how can people accept me, but there's something in the guitars as it works. I feel really happy listening to it, but it's actually quite dark.
Yeah, and I think a lot of metal's a bit like that. There's kind of dichotomous things that happen. You know, you get perhaps a mismatch in some of maybe the lyrics and the music or something like that. There is and just going back to this idea of reclamation, there is a sense that some metal artists maybe kind of fetishize mental health problems to a certain extent, so that they might kind of talk about them in quite a different way from perhaps maybe other kinds of music or other sort of settings might do. But no, I think you're right. I think there is a sort of a jubilant or positive thing about it, as well as it being really quite dark in some places.
Mm. Yeah, and I kind of want to, because we have literally no minutes, but I was going to play out with a bit of Pearl Jam, but actually to play out with something a bit more chilled, because the bit we haven't looked at quite, and I've got a number of tunes, I'll put them all on the playlist for people, is actually just different vibes with voices, because some people it can be a spiritual and quite a deep experience that doesn't have the chaos that a lot of the songs we've played have. So I'm kind of wanting to play us out with the Beastie Boys. Before I do that though, I kind of want to thank everybody for coming. So that's you guys for being part of the wonderful In Conversation With. Very much to Robin and to Zoe, who I'm so glad they were here. I think we could have filled the time, but I don't know whether anyone would still be here if we'd filled the time. I mean, maybe with more music, but yeah, it was great that they brought sort of different vibes with them. And thank you to everyone. And thank you to Jamie as well, being courageous enough for them to pop in and share a bit of their experiences. And I'll obviously get in touch after this, so you've got some links. And thanks to those that have shared on the chat. And we've got a question, so I'll be answering the question in the thing. Last time we had like 20 we didn't answer, so we'll get there. So this song that I'm playing is actually suggested by Robin, and it's a Beastie Boys one, Namaste, and it's just chilled. So I'm going to play it out and hang around for a bit. Don't know if you guys want to say anything just as I'm lining it up.
Just thanks for having us, really.
Yeah, thanks for having us.
Yeah, I mean, what I suggest is people are welcome to leave when they're ready. They can say bye to each other on the chat thing, because I don't like chucking people out of a room. It just feels mean. Guys that have been part of the panel, Zoe, Robin, you're fine to just check out anytime you want, but if you want to just hang around and just like we can go whew afterwards, then that's fine. But let's play this, and thank you so much for everyone for giving us your time. The next one we're going to do is actually voices and visions and extreme experiences in film, and I've got some kind of cool people lined up for that, so that will be in a few weeks hopefully, especially if we're all still locked down, because I don't know about you, but this is not great for my well-being. Cool. Here's some Beastie Boys. Good night.
Chill of fear go through me. I felt my heart contract. To my mind I brought the image of light, and I expanded out. My fear was just a shadow, and then a voice spoke in my head, and she said, dark is not the opposite of light, it's the absence of light. And I thought to myself, she knows what she's talking about.